Hello, in this video you will learn multiple things, how to create scriptable objects, how to work with them, what they are good for, and how to spawn or instantiate the obstacles in the game. So when I will run the game, from the spawn config, we'll be spawning the obstacles, and obstacle will be spawned every 0.5 seconds, and they will be moving towards us. So for this video, scriptable objects, spawning, and obstacles. We are going to create a obstacle, so go to your hierarchy on the left side and right click here and create here 3D object and whatever you want. Actually, you can go with a cube, sphere, or capsule. I'm going with simply with a cube. So click here cube and rename this cube for obstacle underscore enemy. All right, we can go to scene view. We can move this little bit further from the player, let's say here. Okay, and we're going to change the color of this. So go to the project, we will go to our materials. In the materials, we will create a new material. So right click here, find here material, and choose here, let's say obstacle underscore cube, or just the obstacle, or just go with the color. So we did specifically to the obstacle, but let's go with the red. Call it red, for example, and let's assign this red material to your obstacle. And we can change it to some different colors. So we can go now with super bright red, so the enemy is really visible. Okay, so that's how it looks like in the game. We can also, if we want, we can go to scene view and we can increase the scales of the enemy. So in the transform here, you can go to scale and you can increase it to 2 to 2, and this will create a bigger cube, of course, whatever you prefer. Actually, a bigger cube we will create later. Yeah, we can go with the scale 1, 1, 1 for now. Okay, but you will see when you will play the game, this cube is pretty still, doesn't move with other things. So we need to add some movement to this. For that, we'll go back to our coding editor and we'll create here a new file. So in the script, new file, and call it obstacle.cs. Obstacle.cs. We'll create here a new mono behavior. So let's write here using Unity Engine. Let's write here public class obstacle and extend mono behavior this way. Perfect. Save this, and straight away let's assign this to the obstacle enemy. Go with the add component on the right side, add component, and add here obstacle. I can just move it up here. Obstacle, perfect. Now our obstacle enemy has obstacle script, and in obstacle script we can create a very simple movement. So go to the obstacle here. Actually, I should really configure it spaces to 4. I like to have it. All right. Okay, so we'll go to serialize field, and we'll write here the movement speed, so how quickly we'll go towards us this obstacle. So write here private float and m underscore movement speed. Movement speed. We can initialize it, let's say, to 5. Okay, and now let's add here some movement. So I'll write here update. All right, and we'll write here transform position plus equal movement speed multiplied by the time delta time and multiplied by the vector 3 back. Why we are multiplying by the back vector? Because back vector is the z vector minus 1. Okay, so the z vector is the vector that affecting if the game object is moving back and forth. If you will click on your obstacle enemy and you will look at the transform view here, you will see how the z is changing. So further we are, the z is increasing, and lower it gets, we are closer to the player. And that's what we want. That's why we are multiplying this by the vector 3 back, by the negative z-axis, because we want to decrease the z, and then we'll be decreasing the z, the enemy will be moving towards the player. So let's add it somewhere here in distance, so we can see it. Take a look at your obstacle enemy. Your obstacle enemy, first you need to save your script, by the way. Save your script here, and then back in this view, you should see the obstacle has a movement speed. All right, 5, and when I will play the game, it'll be moving towards us very slowly. That's not much challenge here. Okay, we can increase it to 15, let's say 15, so 3 times more. All right, it will go faster. Okay, so that's something we can work with. All right, or maybe even 20. Let's go with some higher speeds so it looks more fun. Okay, yeah. That works for me. Now, second challenge. So what we need to do now, we need to spawn these enemies. So we have multiple of them and going towards the player. For this, we'll be utilizing scriptable objects. That's very good for using to create the configurations. All right, so we'll go back to our code, and in our scripts folder, we'll create here a new file, and we will call it a spawn config, because this will be our spawn configuration. So spawn config so for scriptable object.cs. I'll show you very shortly how you can work with a scriptable object. So we will create the first one. We'll create a scriptable object as a normal class. Just provide a name. The name needs to be same as the file name. So spawn config so. All right, and what you need to extend here will be not the mono behavior, but a scriptable object. Scriptable object, like this. All right, and now to see it, we'll create some new fields. So actually you can see how it look like. We'll just format the document again. Spaces 4. Okay, so we'll create here some serialized fields, and actually, yeah, just create here one. Serialized field, just some testing, one private float testing. All right, so you can actually see it. And to create a scriptable object to work with it, we need to create actually the object in the editor. And to do this, we need to create here this. We need to provide here create asset menu. All right, like in the square brackets, and we'll provide here a menu name. And the menu name is when you basically will go here in your hierarchy, and you will click here, right click in the create, you will see this scriptable object here, but you need to provide it where it will be, in which folder or subfolder. So you will do it like this. Menu name will be for me game slash and new spawn config. So new spawn config, like this, comma, and the file name. This will be the name of the file when you will create this scriptable object, and we can go with the spawn config so, like this. Okay. And also let's create some public fields so we can also test it. Let's write public float testing, and this will be simply returning m_testing so we can see it. Okay, so now we should be able to create this scriptable object. Let's go back to our Unity and go to the base folder of your runner game. Here, as you have materials and scripts, and right click here and create here. You see, we have it here now in create. We have a new subfolder here. It's backed out. Okay, one more time. Right click, create, and here you see you have a game, and under the game you have a new spawn config, and when you will click it, this will create spawn config so. So that's the name, the file name you have specified here. Spawn config so, and this is the menu name we have specified, and we can create this scriptable object here, and you see it has this serialized field m_testing. So here you see it's a testing, and we can assign a value to it, let's say 40. So that's how the scriptable object works, and these values are serialized, so they will be stored when you will change them in the runtime of your game. They will be stored, will be also preserved in the editor. Actually, I will show you the example of this, so it will be easier to explain you. So we'll go to our game manager, game manager, and we'll create here this. We'll get here reference of the scriptable object. So we'll write here serialized field and private and spawn config so, like this. And now we can assign this scriptable object here, and we can work with this. So let's say I'll access it, and I will change this testing value. First, we need to go back to our spawn config so, because I cannot change the testing value through the code because it is a private. So I will write here just for a second, just a public void and set testing, and we'll just change this testing value to something, let's say to 1000. Okay, and now in my game manager, in my start method here, I will call here our spawn config, and I can access this here, the fields, properties. I can access here the methods, so I can write here set testing, and I can just call it, and this should test the configuration of the testing variable to 1000. So check this out. That's how the scriptable object works. Now I have here a C40, that's what I initialize it. When I will start the game, they should change it to the 1000. I will start the game, it's 1000. Actually, we didn't change it because we didn't assign the scriptable object to our game manager. So go very quickly to game manager. And here you have a spawn config so. So you need to drag and drop the spawn config here and to your game manager. So we have a reference to it in game manager. Now when we have it, we can play the game. And I should select the spawn config, but it should be 1000. You see it's 1000. And when I will stop the game, it will be 1000 still. So you can see these values are preserved, are serialized. So that's why I'm telling you that's very good for configuration, because when you will change the value at the runtime, it will stay also when we will stop the game. Okay. So when I will change it back to the 10 here in the editor and will play the game again, it will change it again to 1000, because in a start script of our game manager, we are changing it to 1000. So that's basically idea behind the scriptable objects, and I can now get the same scriptable object to the different components in my game, and I can work with this. So this is a centralized way how to have a configuration, for example. Okay, but we don't need this testing, so we will go now back here. We will remove this spawn config SO set testing, remove it. Go back to your spawn config SO, and we don't need any of this, because what we want to do here, we would like to get here actually some objects we can spawn. Okay, and what we want to spawn here are obstacles. Okay, so let's do it this way. I will show you. We will create here just normal class up here. I will call it spawnable. Spawnable. And spawnable class will be simple wrapper for our obstacles we want to spawn. So in a spawnable class, we'll create here a serialized field like this. Oops, serialized field, and we have here private and obstacle type, so obstacle, and we'll call here this obstacle prefab. Okay, so this will be spawning the obstacle. And also we'll have a serialized field, and will be time interval in which you want to spawn. So private float m_spawn interval, and let's say it will be initially 3. So what this means, we want to spawn obstacles every 3 seconds. Okay, and I'll get it spawnable, and let's write here serialized field private spawnable m_spawnable like this. Okay, actually we want to spawn multiple ones. Maybe we would like to spawn different types of enemies, different types of obstacles. So I have spawnable array like this, so square brackets. Now when you will save this, I will go back here. Actually, we will not see anything here. You see, there is nothing here. We cannot choose, we cannot drag here, we cannot provide here spawnable configuration. And the reason behind this, when you will go back here, when you're working with the pure classes here in Unity, you need to mark them as a serializable in order to work with them in an editor. So you need to mark this as a serializable like this, and this will import system. So using system here. Now when you will save this, you should be able to see now your serializable here as an array. You see, serializable. I can open it, list is empty, I can add here, and this will be element 0, will be the first obstacle we would like to spawn. And we'll provide here prefab, so what type of enemy we want to spawn, and what will be the time interval we want to spawn this. Okay, so we need to get here the obstacle, prefab. We don't have any prefab of our obstacle. To create a prefab, so blueprint of what we will be spawning, will be defining here in our project view. So go to the project view down here and create here a new folder and call it prefabs. Prefabs. To create prefab in Unity is very simple. You just need to drag the game object in your game. So you can just get your here obstacle enemy, get it, and drag and drop it into your prefabs folder, and you have now created a prefab of it. So prefabs work like this. When I will create a prefab, I can create multiple instances of the same game object, which will have a configuration of the prefab. So here I have an obstacle enemy, which is a prefab here. Has this configuration, has an obstacle script, has a box collider, and all of this. And when I will drag it into the game view, I can create multiple instances of the same prefab. Okay, so now we have this. So what's this? We have a prefab, and we can instantiate multiple instances from this. I can show you what does this look like. So you have one prefab or blueprint prefab, and you can create multiple instances from this prefab. So instance 1, instance 2, instance 3, and so on and so on. So you have one blueprint with a configuration, create multiple instances from it. That's the idea behind it. I will show you how you can create an instance from this in the code. Okay, we can revert all this. Just keep here this one obstacle enemy. By the way, double-click obstacle enemy. This will get you to the prefab view. That's how it look like. That's our prefab. And these positions, what you're seeing here, X, Y, and the Z, will reset here. So that here is 0, a 0, and 0. So double-click the obstacle enemy. Here it is. So that will be the position will be initialized to all zeros. Okay, now we can save this. That's our prefab. Now we can go to our to our spawn configuration. So go to your runner game, go to spawn config, and now you can drag here your obstacle prefab. Before that, because it's will be hard to now go to prefab view, and you will select this, you can see the configuration disappear from here. And go back to your configuration, click at this, and here on the top right corner you have this lock sign. Just click this. This will lock this in the view. Now you can go to prefab, and you can drag your obstacle enemy into obstacle prefab here, and specify here, let's say 1 second. So each second will be spawning the enemy. Okay, now we can unlock it. So click here the lock to unlock it, so it will disappear. But when you go back to the spawn config as O, it's here. Perfect, so now we have everything in the place. Now we just need to create a method to spawn the obstacle, okay? And it will take some time. So this will be a little longer. Let's go back here. Okay, as we have our spawnable class, and we'll be preparing all the implementation here. Okay, so we have a spawn interval. We'll create here a private variable, float, and we will be keeping here the spawn timer. You will see why we need spawn timer very shortly. Just initialize it to 0 first, spawn timer, and we'll create here one public, and it will be our spawn interval. We'll expose outside of here m underscore, or actually maybe we don't need to expose it even. Yeah, not expose it yet. Okay, so we have a spawn timer and spawn interval, and I will create here a method to spawn this object. So let's write here public. We'll be returning from here obstacle, which will be spawning. Spawn, we will call this method spawn. What we will just be specifying here at which position we want to spawn this game object. So vector 3 and position. Okay, now how will be spawning? We'll first check if the time is large, so the current time is larger than the spawn timer. Okay, or we can call it spawn time or spawn timer. Let's call it spawn timer. Okay, so when the current time is larger than spawn timer, then we can spawn the obstacle. Okay, first we'll reset the spawn timer. So we'll write here m spawn timer is equal to time plus spawn interval. Okay, and then we'll create a new game object. So we'll do it like this: return unity engine dot object dot instantiate. All right, we will provide a prefab, so the object we want to instantiate, so m underscore obstacle prefab, and the position where we want to instantiate it, so that will be the position passing in the method spawn, and the rotation. The basic rotation is quaternion identity. That's the base rotation, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so that's we are returning, and also if the timer is not larger than the spawn timer, then we want to return here null because we are not spawning anything in that case. Okay, so imagine the case. Current time in the game is, let's say, initially the spawn timer will be 0. Okay, so this will be 0. The time of the game is like this in a second. So first we'll start running the game. The timer will be increasing each second. So first will be 0, then 1, then 2, then 3. So initially the spawn timer will be 0, and then it will become 1. Okay, and this means the spawn time is larger than the spawn timer. So we can spawn the object, and we will increase the spawn interval. So spawn interval will become the current time. Let's imagine this 1 plus spawn interval. Spawn interval will be, let's say, 3. So plus 3. So this will become 4. So spawn interval will become 4. So next time we'll be trying to spawn the obstacle. We'll be checking here if the time is larger than the 4. All right. So time was last time 1. So the time will be increasing in the game. So we'll be running the game 2 seconds and 3 seconds. Still, the time is not larger than the 4, so we will be not spawning anything. Then the time in the game will finally become 4, let's say 4.1. This is larger than the 4, so we'll be spawning again. So that's how we will create the intervals in the game. So each 3 seconds, let's say we want to spawn the enemy. So you will do it this way. Okay. Spawn timer will be initially 0, so this means when the game starts, this will immediately spawn the enemy. So what we want to do actually is spawn enemy initially in the game after this spawn interval, so 3 seconds, let's say. So I will create here init method, public void init. in which I will assign to the spawn timer, not interval, but a spawn timer, the value from the spawn interval, m_spawn interval. Okay, so that's basically that's the entire spawnable configuration what we need to spawn the obstacle. Okay, then we'll go back to the configuration here. In the configuration here, we'll create here, now how to explain you this. We want to call this init method here. Okay, so whenever I will change here, spawn interval to 3 or 2 or 6 or whatever, I want to react to these changes as I'm changing it, and I would like to get this initialize the spawn timer to the value of the spawn interval. So to react to these changes with the scriptable objects, you can create here a method called onValidate. You can write here private void onValidate like this, and it will be called every time you will change the value of the scriptable object. So onValidate, I want to call this init method of my spawnable game object, so I can change the value of the timer, and I want to call this init. So here on validate, I want to call this method. So first, we'll do it like this. I will create here public function, public method called init. I want to iterate over my spawnables. So for each var spawnable in m_spawn, we should call it spawnables, multiple, because it's a list, so, or array. So call it plural spawnables. So for spawnable in spawnables, call it brackets, and we will call here spawnable.init. And this init method we will call here this way. Okay, so now I will show you. I'll write here debug log, and I'll write here initializing a value. Okay, so when you will save this now, get back here. When I will be changing the spawn interval value, you will see we'll be calling this init. So spawnables, we need to add it again because we have renamed the variable to spawnables, plural, so we need to change it again. So we need to add here a new item, and now we need to get here obstacle. So again, press this lock sign up here on the top right corner, lock it, go to the project view, go to your prefabs, and drag your obstacle enemy, drag it, and now we can unlock it. All right, you can see your spawn config again, go to console, and you will see when it will be changing spawn interval, not this, but you can see initializing value in the console. So each time I will change the spawn interval, it will be calling this init method. So we are initializing the spawn interval. So let's write here 1. Okay, and this debug log we don't need anymore. So go back to our code. Debug log we can remove. Okay, also, so we are fully ready here. So what we need to do now is to go to our game manager, and in the game manager to set up everything to spawn actually this obstacle. Okay, and one more thing. Actually, we need expose the spawnables because they are currently private. To access them in the game manager, we need to expose them. So let's write here public and spawnable type array, and spawnables we'll call this, and we'll return m_spawnables. So this way we can access the spawnables. Okay, finally, go to game manager. We are almost done here. So we want to get here, we want to spawn here. But before that, I will call here in a start, I'll access here my spawn configuration. So m_spawn config so, and I will call here init method. Remember, we have this method. Also, when on the start, I want to call the init to initialize the timers back. If they have been changed during the runtime, on the start on the game manager, I would like to initialize them back to their values. Okay, so call it also on the start, the spawn config so init. And now we can do spawning. So in update, we'll be handling spawning. Okay, so under this update, here, under this for each, let's write here some spacing. And let's write here again, let's write here additional for each. And brackets, let's write here var, call it spawnable variable in mspawn config scriptable object spawnables. So now we can iterate through the spawnables. Okay, and we can call now spawnable.spawn to spawn the game object, this obstacle. But we need to provide a position at which we want to spawn it. So we need to choose the position. And this position will be choosing the randomly. Okay, we'll do it like this. We'll create here a new method, private vector3, and right here choose a random position, or choose spawn position. Choose spawn position. All right, which will be choosing randomly. So what can be spawn position? Go to your game view for a second. Go to your scene view. Okay, and we'll be choosing the position like this. So initialize these positions to be, let's say, 0, actually minus 0.5. This can be 0. And not this can be 0.5 actually, this way. So the random positions will be either this position as you see on the x minus 0.5, or the x position will be minus 3.5, so it will be here. So this position, middle position, or 2.5, so it will be right position. Or the cube can be also in the air. So when it will be in the air, this can be position as we have currently, 0.5, or let's say 2, or 2.5, 2.5 or 2, or 3, or 3, or 2.5. It doesn't matter. So on the x position, we have 3 options. On the y position, we have 2 options. So like one more time, on the x position, there can be random position of minus 0.5. So minus 0.5 is one position. 2.5 is this one position we can choose randomly, and then a minus 3.5 other position. Okay, so let's choose this position. So we will create here a variable. We'll call it x positions, and this will be the array. So new float array, and we'll specify here all of the available positions we can spawn this object on. So this will be minus 3.5. Then I set minus 0.5, and then 2.5, and then similarly y positions, and this will be new float array, and this can be either 0.5 or 3. All right, so that's the available position. Now we need to choose them randomly. To choose the position randomly, you can write here var x position equal access your x positions, plural, access this list, and access the random index. To choose the random index, we can use here Unity engine random range, and choose here the range of your from 0 to x positions length, like this. So here you're just choosing the random basically index. So here range from 0 to x position length is the length of this is a 3. So you will choose the random index between 0 and 3. So the random index here can be either 0, 1, or 2. Okay, so you can these numbers you will choose randomly, and this will be the index from which you will accessing this. So if the index will be 1, you're accessing this middle position. If you're choosing randomly position index 2, then the position will be this 2.5, and so on and so on. So that's how you're choosing the indexes randomly. And the same do it for the y position. Copy this, write here y position. This will be choosing from the y positions. Make sure you will rename this, and here will be range from the 0 to y positions length, and this will choose your random position. And now we can just return from here a new vector 3. It will be our new position. So the x position we have chosen, so x position, again singular, y position, and the z position will be m spawn position dot position z. So what is this spawn position? Remember, our spawn position z is this object we have here, a spawn position here. When you select in the hierarchy spawn position, and its z location is 145. So that we'll be spawning all of the game objects here and this. Of course, you can spawn it closer if you want, but I will be choosing this position 145. If you want, you can also hard code it here. So instead of writing here spawn position z, you can just write here, for example, 75 if you would like to spawn it in the midpoint. But I will choose here this spawn position z. Okay. Now in the spawnable, in the spawn, we can finally call here choose spawn position, and that's it. Okay, and we should be done with this. We can save this, go back to game, and now you should spawn these game objects each second. So verify one more time your spawn configuration. You should have your obstacle enemy, spawn interval 1. When you will go to your game manager, the spawn config SO should be assigned here. So when you will run the game, you'll see now We have spawned way too many enemies. We are actually, that's something wrong. Okay, looks interesting. All right. Probably the time interval we are spawning them is wrongly set. So basically we are assigning the time wrongly. Okay, save this and let's get back to coding editors. Okay, go to your spawn config, scriptable objects, scroll up here, where the spawn time is larger than spawn timer, that's correct, and here is an incorrect thing. Spawn interval, we are reassigning the spawn interval, which is very wrong. What should be here is a spawn timer, is time plus spawn interval. Okay. Now it should be correct. So let's save this. Get back to the game. So now each second we should spawn one game object. Let's play the game. And let's see it. So obstacle enemy is there and still not spawning. So now there must be some other issue with the timer. Maybe I have initialized my spawn timer to something wrong. Let's get back here. So here is a spawn timer equal to the spawn interval. This is correct. This is correct. Time plus spawn interval is correct. So yeah, everything seems to be okay. While we are not spawning. Let me check the spawn config as okay, you can see here spawn interval value is for some reason 10,700 and it hasn't been resetted. So what we need to do here is just to click here and write here 1 again, and now it should be all right. So when you will save this, it shouldn't be changing now, and each second we should be spawning game object. You see, as they are being added on the left side in the hierarchy here, each second we are adding the new game object. We can even increase the speed of these cubes and also spawn interval. So I can get the spawn interval to 0.5, let's say. Go to your prefab view and change the speed. So go to down here to prefabs, click here and change the speed here of your obstacle. Or you can go to obstacle enemy and change the speed here, and you can override prefab. You can do it like this. Then you will change the movement speed here to, let's say, 40, and you will click here overrides up here. You can click this and you can apply all, and this will also apply to prefab. So you can do it either from the prefab view, or you can just change it to game object in the game and then override it. So play the game now, and now this will be more challenging. So they're getting spawned faster, and they are also they're moving faster as well. Okay. Maybe it's still not fast enough because it's pretty easy to get to avoid this. Okay, so that's basically it. Hey, so hopefully everything is clear at this point. As always, you can find the code included in the resources. If something is not clear, just ask, and hopefully I will answer. Okay, that's gonna be it. Cheers.